Hot dogs are the original mystery meat. Salty, smoky, a little sweet, and absolutely perfect on a grill, even when you know you probably shouldn't ask what's inside. But some brands are stretching scraps and fillers into something hot dog flavored, while others are still making honest all-beef sausages worthy of a good bun. Subscribe and let's separate the junk from the hot dogs actually worth eating. Bar S Classic Franks are what you buy when you need 40 hot dogs for as little money as possible, and the ingredient strategy reflects that. Instead of relying on mostly whole muscle beef or pork, Bar S leans on mechanically separated chicken, plus added pork, starches, sweeteners, and a whole support cast of salts and curing agents. That's how they hit those rock-bottom prices without losing the hot dog shape and color. Mechanically separated meat isn't automatically poisonous, but it drags in more connective tissue, fat, and non-muscle scraps, and the texture tells on it. You get that soft, rubbery, almost spongy bite instead of a real sausage snap. Nutritionally, these dogs are doing you no favors. The sodium is high even by hot dog standards, the actual protein per frank is modest, and a surprising chunk of the calories comes from processed fat and fillers rather than meat. You end up with something that will technically fill a bun and quiet a hungry crowd, but doesn't give you much real meat value for the mouthful. On a grill, there's a tiny window where they're okay, and then they split, wrinkle, and turn into rubber tubes that taste mainly like salt and smoke. Bar S works if all you need is something hot dog shaped for a kid's party. If you actually care what's inside the casing, it's pure industrial compromise. Sugardale is the Midwestern version of the bulk bargain dog. Big family packs, red and white labels, and end caps loaded with enough franks to feed a church parking lot. The way they hit those prices is by treating meat as one ingredient among many. Mixed meats at the bottom of the cost ladder padded with water, sugars, and fillers, so you can sell a lot of hot dog-shaped food without spending a lot on beef or pork. You're not paying for prime cuts ground into sausages. You're paying for a hot dog base that's been stretched as far as it can go. You feel that stretching in three places: bite, flavor, and value. The bite is soft and rubbery with almost no snap because you're chewing on an emulsified blend of scraps and connective tissue instead of firm muscle and casing. The flavor leans oddly sweet on top of already high sodium, which is what happens when sugar and salt have to do as much work as the meat in making each bite feel satisfying. And the value that looks great on the shelf starts to look different when you realize a chunk of what you bought is water, filler, and cheap fat. Per ounce of actual meat, the deal isn't as impressive as it seems. Sugardale makes sense when you truly just need sheer volume and don't care what's under the toppings. Fundraisers, concession stands, situations where the hot dog is basically a delivery system for ketchup and nostalgia. But for any cookout where the frank itself is supposed to be enjoyable, this is industrial hot dog concentrate stretched with sugar and salt. Not a real sausage you choose, because you love how it eats. Oscar Mayer is the hot dog brand your brain pictures by default. The Wienermobile, the jingle, the yellow and red package your parents bought every summer. The company has been selling wieners since the early 1900s, and the classic mixed meat line still shows up in almost every supermarket in America. The reason they've stayed on top is nostalgia, not meat quality. The classic wieners are engineered to taste exactly like what Americans think a hot dog tastes like: soft, bouncy, and aggressively hot dog flavored. That flavor comes from a long ingredient list and added flavorings rather than from letting good beef or pork stand out. There's no real snap, no distinct spice blend, and no sense of actual sausage craftsmanship, just that familiar, uniform taste the brand has trained everyone to expect. For a lot of people, that's comforting. It tastes like ball games, cookouts, and childhood summers. But once you compare them side by side with better franks, the illusion breaks. Oscar Mayer starts to feel less like a hot dog and more like a hot dog flavored product that happens to come in a familiar package. If the main thing keeping a brand on your grill is a jingle from 40 years ago, it probably doesn't belong in the real category. Ballpark beef franks were literally born in a stadium built to taste great with beer and mustard at Tiger Stadium in the 1950s. They've since become the default tailgate dog across huge chunks of the country. Bold smoke, plenty of sweetness, big family packs, and constant sales. They're also the textbook example of a meaty sponge, and that's not an accident. Ballpark's beef and mixed meat franks are heavily emulsified blends of meat, water, and additives like corn syrup, sorbitol, and sodium phosphates whipped into a smooth paste before they ever hit a casing. That fine grind and extra water are what give you that fluffy, bouncy texture. When you bite down, the dog compresses instead of snapping, because you're chewing on a stabilized meat emulsion rather than a firm sausage with real structure. The sweet, smoky flavor and high salt level come from sugar and flavoring compounds layered on top of that paste, not from the beef itself doing the heavy lifting. Those same tricks are what make Ballpark feel so satisfying under a mountain of toppings. Chili, cheese, onions, relish, everything sticks. And the dog's sugar and smoke profile punches through all of it. But strip the condiments away, and you're left with something that tastes more like hot dog flavored foam than a proper Frankfurter. You're not getting much snap. You're not getting much real meat character. And nutritionally, you're taking in a lot of sodium, added sugars, and processing aids for each modest hit of protein. If all you want is a soft, sweet tube under chili, Ballpark works. If you want to actually taste a sausage with just mustard, it's more chemistry than meat. At the very bottom of the list are the true peanut spread hot dogs, great value chicken, turkey, and pork franks, egg-rich original meat franks, and similar meat franks that quietly avoid saying beef on the label. These are built on mechanically separated chicken and turkey plus pork trimmings, water, corn syrup, starch, and a whole supporting cast of salts and curing agents, then whipped into a smooth emulsion so it will extrude into a tube and survive months in a cooler. That's why the bite is soft and bouncy with no snap, and why the flavor is just salty smoke, instead of anything resembling an actual sausage. They're cheap for a reason. Per bite, you're getting a lot of sodium, fillers, and emulsified scraps, and not a lot of real, recognizable meat. The common thread is formulation, low-cost meat trimmings mechanically separated, high water content, and enough starch, salt, and smoke flavor to hold it all together. The texture is soft and uniform, with no muscle definition and very little bite. They bend and smush instead of snapping. On the grill, they either sit there sweating or split and shrivel, and the flavor is generic salt and smoke, with almost zero real meat character. These products are the hot dog equivalent of the peanut spread jars in the peanut butter aisle, technically on the same shelf, legally allowed to use similar words, but built around stretching cheap inputs rather than showcasing actual beef or pork. If the front of the package won't commit to all beef, or at least clear pork/beef language, and the price looks too good to be true, you're buying the most industrial version of the category, not a real Frank you'll be proud to serve. Every fake side hot dog here is optimized for cost, nostalgia marketing, sweetness, or texture that can survive a shipping container. Now let's flip it and talk about hot dogs that are still built like actual sausages. On the real side, the first big upgrade is the clean label all-beef hot dog from chains like Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's organic grass-fed beef hot dogs and similar private label franks are built to appeal to the same person who checks their ground beef labels. 100% beef, often grass-fed, with ingredient decks that read like actual food instead of a chemistry experiment. The payoff is straightforward. Instead of a sweet, bouncy, generic hot dog taste, you get a leaner, beef-forward flavor with less sugar and smoke and more actual meat character. The natural casings used in many lots give you that satisfying pop when you bite, the way old-school sausages are supposed to feel. On the grill, they tend to brown cleanly, rendering fat without throwing off puddles of orange grease. There are trade-offs. You have to live near a Trader Joe's or similar natural foods grocer. They can feel less hot doggy if you grew up on Ballpark. And the lean profile means you need to watch the heat so they don't dry out. But if your starting point is, I actually care what's in this, these clean label all beef dogs are a massive step up from mixed meat commodity Franks. If Trader Joe's is the gateway, Applegate Naturals organic uncured beef hot dogs are the full commitment to the clean side of the category. Applegate built its entire brand on no antibiotic, no synthetic nitrites, and meat you can trace. And their beef Franks are exactly that. 100% beef, sea salt, spices, and curing agents derived from celery and cherry powder instead of lab-made nitrites. The experience matches the label. Applegate dogs have a firm, dense bite and a distinctly beefy flavor with subtle spicing instead of the sugar and smoke hit you get from stadium dogs. In taste tests, they routinely land near the top among natural and organic brands because there's no metallic aftertaste, no artificial tang. Just straightforward beef with enough seasoning to keep it interesting. On a grill, they hold together and brown like real sausages rather than ballooning and bursting. You pay for that integrity. Per-pound prices are significantly higher than conventional hot dogs, and if you grew up on sweeter Franks, Applegate can read as too grown up or not indulgent enough. But if you want a hot dog, you can hand to a kid and feel good about the ingredient list. This is one of the few national brands that actually lives up to the marketing copy on the package. Boar's Head beef Franks are what happens when a deli meats company decides its hot dog should live up to the cold cuts behind the glass. Sold mostly out of supermarket deli cases, these are all beef Franks made from hand-trimmed USDA choice beef, natural sheep casings, and a short ingredient list: beef, water, salt, cultured celery powder instead of synthetic nitrites, natural flavors, paprika, and sea salt. No mechanically separated meat, no fillers, no byproducts, no artificial colors or preservatives. Bite into a boar's head dog and you can feel that difference. The natural casing actually pops. The interior is dense and meaty instead of fluffy. And the seasoning leans on garlic and paprika to back up the beef, rather than burying it under sugar. On the grill, they brown and char like a real sausage, hold their shape without splitting, and don't collapse into wrinkled tubes as soon as they leave the heat. This is a hot dog you can eat with just mustard or even plain and still feel like you're getting your money's worth in actual meat. The trade-off is price and personality. A pack of Boar's Head costs noticeably more than the average grocery aisle dog, and the branding feels more serious deli-counter than nostalgic ballpark fun. But that's the point. This is the Frank you buy when you're done with mystery meat and emulsified sponges, and you want a hot dog that's built like a real sausage with clean ingredients to match. Hebrew National Beef. Franks sit near the top of nearly every mainstream taste test for a reason. They're one of the few widely available brands that pair a real beef flavor with stricter processing rules. Kosher certification means no byproducts, no fillers, and more stringent inspection standards, which is why their ingredient lists are short and their reputation is held up for decades. It should also be obvious that they are 100% beef with the kosher claim. On the grill or in a skillet, Hebrew National dogs give you a dense, meaty chew with a seasoning profile that supports the beef rather than burying it. Tasters describe them as clean, garlicky, and beef-forward, with less sweetness than Ballpark and less gimmicky smoke than some regional brands. They perform well both as simple mustard and bun hot dogs and as a base for more loaded builds because the core flavor can actually compete with the toppings. They're not perfect. The retail dogs are usually skinless, so you don't get the same casing snap as deli-counter sausages, and they cost more than the basic mixed meat packs without reaching full artisan pricing. But if you want something you can find almost anywhere in the US that still tastes like a real beef sausage, Hebrew National is one of the most dependable moves you can make. At the very top, two mass-market brands share the title and prove that hot dogs don't have to be mystery meat: Nathan's Famous and Costco's Kirkland Signature Beef Hot Dogs. Nathan's started as a nickel stand on Coney Island in 1916 and has been chasing that boardwalk flavor ever since. The retail Franks are all beef with a bold garlic paprika spice blend, and even in skinless supermarket form, they carry much of the same character that made the original famous. In taste tests, Nathan's regularly ranks near the top for assertive beefiness, balanced smoke, and the ability to stand up to both simple mustard and fully loaded toppings. Grill a pack and you get good char, solid juiciness, and a flavor that feels like New York in every bite. Costco's Kirkland Signature Beef Hot Dogs hit the same real sausage notes from a completely different angle. These are quarter-pound, all-beef Franks with no byproducts or fillers, sold in big club packs and immortalized in the $1.50 food court combo that hasn't changed price in decades. The texture is firm and substantial, the seasoning is straightforward and lets the beef speak, and the value-to-quality ratio is unmatched. People literally plan Costco trips around that food court dog for a reason. Put them together, and you get the two clearest proofs that hot dogs can be real food again. Nathan's delivers the nostalgic, spiced, East Coast deli flavor. Kirkland delivers the thick, juicy, all-beef club store Frank that eats like something far more expensive. Neither is perfect. Nathan's could use casings, Kirkland requires a membership, but both are worlds away from the mushy mixed meat tubes at the bottom of the case. Hot dogs will always be a little ridiculous. Ground meat, emulsified, stuffed into tubes, and sold in bulk for backyard parties. But there's a huge difference between a Frank built around cheap trimmings, sugar, and nostalgia marketing, and one built around actual beef, real casings, and a grind that behaves like sausage instead of sponge. The rule of thumb is simple. If the package can't say all beef, if the bite has no snap, and if the flavor is mostly sugar and smoke, you're on the fake side of the aisle. If the label leads with beef, the ingredients list is short, the dog actually snaps when you bite it, and you'd happily eat it with just mustard, you've crossed back into real hot dog territory. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and let us know in the comments your favorite hot dogs.